Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Monday, July 28th. We kick off a new week today after a weekend announcement of U.S.-EU trade deals, and tariff talks with China are expected to resume today. This comes after a solid end to last week with all three major indices posting gains and the S&P 500 notching its fifth straight record close. The S&P 500 added 25 points, or 0.4%, to end at 6,388 points. The Dow advanced 208 points, or about 0.5%. The Nasdaq picked up 50 points, or about 0.25%. But let's get into Monday and a new week with what is happening in the markets this morning.
I guess, good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. We're actually trading higher. We're up, 0.19%, about 0.2%, which is positive. I mean, we were, it does show you that the markets are likely to be open up higher today. And this is one of the busiest weeks of the year. I mean, the big news event, obviously, was the U.S.-EU trade agreement that was done over the weekend. I got to say, it was widely anticipated. It was widely expected. And the markets are waiting for some additional clarity on the details of it because, with Trump, you don't get details, you just get the big announcement. But later today, the U.S. and China, they're scheduled to meet in Sweden. This is for another round of trade talks. Now, the expectations here are for them to pause the tariffs for another 90 days. That's the best case scenario. The Trump administration is expected to announce a national security investigation into the semiconductor imports within the next 2 weeks. But listen, trade agreements, earnings, the Fed decision this week, and a host of key economic data points, that's going to dominate trading this week. You look at India, and while that trade agreement is said to be close, they got trade talks scheduled for the end of next month. So I don't see a trade agreement with India coming anytime soon. I see Bangladesh ordered 25 planes from Boeing, in an effort to lower their tariffs. On the earnings front, tomorrow morning's big day. Procter & Gamble, United Healthcare, AstraZeneca, Merck, Boeing, Spotify, UPS, they're all scheduled to release tomorrow morning. So we got a lot going on. Now we're turning our attention over to Europe for a second. Now the DAX is flat. There is a little momentum in autos and pharmaceutical stocks, but it gave up earlier gains. It was showing some strong gains earlier this morning. London's flat to lower. It's down 0.14%. There's some weakness in the mining sector this morning, which is dragging down that index. In France, the CAC, it's up 22 points, or 0.28%. Sentiment is rather positive. There's a lot of corporate earnings coming out, even in the luxury space. So that's really what they're waiting on. And then you turn your attention over to Asia. Asia generally saw gains. The Nikkei was lower by 1.10%. It was really considered traders locking in profits ahead of a wave of corporate earnings that are scheduled this week. And of course, the BOJ announcement, they're meeting this week. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng finished up 0.68%. Gains were broad-based. Financials, property stocks rallied. Shanghai and China finished higher by 0.12%. It's all about the trade talks with the U.S. because that's a key focus. But I also need to point out that the start of that Politburo meeting is this week too, and they're likely to come out with some additional stimulus for their economy. So that could be a positive event forthcoming in China. In terms of oil, we're seeing gains in oil this morning, which is good to see. Oil is up over 1.5%. You got WTI at $66.34 a barrel. That's up 1.81%. And Brent is trading at $69.61 a barrel, up 1.71%. OPEC's got that joint ministers meeting council panel going on today, and they're expected, to approve that August production hike, which is over 500,000 barrels per day. So, that's gonna be the key story today. We got to wait for some news announcements on that. But overall, this trade agreement with the EU is seen as, helping to keep oil demand positive. So, oil's trading higher this morning, and that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update, Emily.
Bill, trade talks, major economic events, and a bunch of earnings action, as you mentioned, one of the busiest weeks of the year, and able to take advantage of this event and news-based action, following your newsware and the podcast every day is a way to take advantage of all these opportunities and keep track of the important information. And speaking of keeping track of important information, earnings action, Bill, you did give us a preview of some to look ahead to. So let's start there. What is going on in terms of earnings?
Yeah, no real big major market firms came out with earnings this morning, but tomorrow is another story because tomorrow you got Procter and Gamble, ticker PG. Their EPS is $1.43. Expected move is 3.32%. You got United Healthcare, UNH, Uncle Nancy Henry. Their EPS is $4.84. Expected move is 7.97%. You got Boeing, ticker BA, Boy Apple. They're expected to lose $1.47. Expected move is 4.72% when they release. You also have earnings coming from Spotify, American Tower, Royal Caribbean Cruise, UPS, Ecolab, PayPal, and others are all scheduled to release tomorrow morning, Emily.
And you will be keeping track of all of those earnings releases using your newsware, keeping track and sifting through those reports. You're also keeping track of the week's economic events. We do start off slow today, but as the week picks up, we do have the FOMC meeting that is going to be widely watched. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of economic events?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the market's entering into a critical week with a bunch of major catalysts, including a Federal Reserve meeting that's got an announcement scheduled for Wednesday, and then a big wave of mega cap tech earnings, and a bunch of economic data. That's all scheduled for today. I mean, you look at the tape, and you got earnings coming from Boeing, PayPal, Procter and Gamble, Spotify, United Healthcare, Starbucks, Visa, Mastercard, Merck, American Tower, ADP. Etsy, Arb Holdings, Kraft Heinz, Ford, Qualcomm, Aviva, Chevron, Exxon. I mean, it's a big week for earnings. But in terms of economic reports, listen, at 10:30 a.m. you get the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Business Index. Not huge, but later this week you get the advanced GDP. We also get the PCE data, and you also have a Fed meeting. So a lot of economic reports this week. Today is just rather light, Emily.
And Bill, keeping track of those earnings in tandem with the economic reports, looking at all this earnings information really can be an economic indicator, corporate health, consumer health, along with taking those details from those economic reports. And that is why you follow both of them day in and day out. You also follow a lot of other types of news, data, and information. You follow merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, and catalyst calls, all using your newsware. You're able to create alerts for stocks grouped together, like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 11 lower. I got one unchanged, and the rest higher. So it's like 18 higher. I'm looking at my FANG stocks this morning, and generally, that they are all positive. So that's good to start off the day with. And you're looking for some news behind the tape, like Apple. Tech companies are expected to visit the White House this week on a healthcare data plan. Now, this is a data plan to share patient data. I mean, we're talking companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, and NVIDIA. They're all scheduled to be at the White House one day this week. Meta's in conflict with Apple and Google over their new state laws in the U.S. that require U.S. tech companies to verify users' ages to protect children online. Tesla signed a multi-year $16.5 billion agreement with Samsung Electronics to manufacture its next generation AI semiconductors known as the A16 chips. In terms of Dow Jones 30, we've got to talk Amazon, Termu, one of their big competitors is a Chinese firm. Their efforts to undercut Amazon is being met with resistance by U.S. suppliers. Walmart has started raising prices on a variety of goods due to the impact of new tariffs. What else we got? Boeing. We got to talk about Boeing. Boeing is trading higher this morning ahead of earnings tomorrow morning. But there are workers in 3 St. Louis plants that have rejected the company's initial contract offer. That shouldn't be seen as a bad sign. It was the initial offer. Then there's a cooling period. So, that deal could still come together. In terms of shareholders meetings going on, OPEN, Oscar Paul Edward Nancy. This is Open Door Technologies. The stock's very volatile, but they're having a shareholders meeting today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. In terms of catalyst calls, PTCT, Paul, Tom, Charlie, Tom, it's PTC Therapeutics. They were given a 30-day upside catalyst watch by Citi this morning. So that's something to watch. And that's what I have for you in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the free trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. A new week, and we're closing out these last trading days in July. What do you have for us today?
I'm gonna go with Corning. That's ticker GLW, Grace Larry William. Now the earnings are out tomorrow morning. The EPS is 57 cents, and the expected move is 5.24%. Look at Friday's data on the call side. You have 9,645 calls versus 1,063 puts. Wow. But the open interest is pretty good too. You got 204K versus 40K. That's huge differential as well. And the major brokers are positive. They're raising price targets on Corning GLW. So, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little weakness in the stock this morning. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the stock this morning, and Corning is trading, 55.46 to 55.55. So I'm going to say, anywhere between, 55.10 to 55.45, somewhere in that range. Try and get a little bit of a discount. I think that is definitely possible, but I do think this is going to be a good one. GLW, Corning, Grace, Larry, William, Emily, and that's my pick of the day.
Corning it is today. We will follow that one along with you. And coming up, we will do a recap on Friday's pick of the day, another earnings play. And you had a specific entry point for that one as well. We'll see if that worked out. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, what do we have? China's VP, he arrives for trade talks with the U.S. in Stockholm, Sweden. Trump on Putin. I'm ready to reduce the 50 days I gave him. Ooh, that's why you're not. That's cautionary. Trump's EU trade deal is a big win. I think it's too early to say it's a big win. You don't know the details. France luxury brands are getting hit by a vibe shift. Serapia, SRPT, Sam Richard, Paul Tom, FDA is investigating death of child who received one of their drugs. That's not good. American Airlines, AAL, the new Airbus jets grounded by supply chain issues. LVMH, they're in talks to sell Marc Jacobs. Deal could fetch around $1 billion. PD, Paul David, that's PagerDuty. They're exploring options, including the potential sale of the company. Trump on trade. Most deals are done by August 1st. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we dive into another week of trading, let's look back of Friday and that pick of the day, which was Revvity, ticker RVTY. They did report earnings this morning. They reported Q2 EPS of $1.18. That was 4 cents better than the analyst estimate of $1.14. Revenue for the quarter in at $720 million versus the estimate of $710.39 million. So even though there was a beat there, the guidance was a little weak. Management guided for organic growth between 2% and 4%, down from a previous 3% to 5%. Additionally, the company lowered its adjusted earnings guidance for the full year. Investors weren't liking that much this morning, but Friday it did dip close to the entry point you were hoping for and climbed from there. Bill, how did your call work out?
Listen, we go for 1% gains. That's the model. And, with RVTY, it hit it on Friday. I mean, the stock opened up at 102.45 and hit a high of 104.41. And it actually fell down to 101.57 and closed at 103.67. But if you look at the opening price and the high, is there an opportunity for a 1% gain? Absolutely. So RVTY, Richard Victor Tom Yellow, was a winner on Friday, Emily.
A winner there, Bill, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Corning pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning this week at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Bonney, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.